Yankees split with the Orioles a 4-game set, end their road trip 5-3. And I think that they were one win away from 6-2 would have really been an excellent trip. To have gone 3 out of 4 at Cleveland and at Baltimore would have been really good. And unfortunately, it ends with a really tough loss. This team, they're just not really quite there. Some encouraging signs, to be sure. But also, I still don't love the construction of the lineup. Some players are coming out of it. Some are continuing to struggle. Of note, Mike Tauchman, after the first game, so after the Monday Baltimore game, was traded to San Francisco for left-handed reliever Wandy Peralta. And I think it seemed like Tauchman kind of fell out of favor within the organization. You heard some trade rumors during spring training. He is in some ways redundant, but to be honest with you, like Brett Gardner, I don't really have much faith in him at this stage in his career. Tauchman, unfortunately, wasn't showing enough. Like, between the two, honestly, I'd probably prefer Tauchman, but it's not as if he, like I said, he wasn't exactly showing out. But with the way our outfielders are playing in terms of ineffectiveness and also injuries, Tauchman probably would have come into some use. But he is traded away to San Francisco in a mild, again, somewhat surprising, and I really do think that in part they did it a little bit as a favor to Tauchman. Obviously, they're trying to help the team as much as they can, and they must think that Peralta can help them. But I think with Tauchman also, it gives him more playing time. And already he plays for San Francisco, and I believe he started in center field and went 3 for 4. Looked pretty good. So we'll see if they regret that one. But, minor trade. But again, the Yankees coming off of a loss on Sunday after winning 3 straight against Cleveland to start the series. And they don't get things on the right foot for the first game against Baltimore. And that would be Davey Garcia against Matt Harvey. So Harvey ends up pitching a very nice game against the Yanks. Garcia would get into some early trouble. So he would give up a solo homer to Cedric Mullins, who he was a switch hitter. Now he's just batting left, and he's been great. I mean, Mullins has really been a thorn on the Yankees side, and definitely seems like he has a lot of potential for Baltimore. So Mullins immediately hits a home run to give Baltimore a 1-0 lead. And then in the second, Freddie Galvis would add an RBI double. Harvey, pitches seemed hittable, but they just weren't doing a whole lot with it. The Yankees would eventually get on the board in the 6th. And at this point, Davey Garcia goes 4 innings, gives up 3 hits, gives up those 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. So it was a battle, it was a grind, but he kept him in the game. And then Garcia would be sent down after the game. So they would option him down, and we'll probably see Garcia up and down basically all year. But I thought he was okay, but wasn't amazing by any means either. And then Lucas Licky pitches a scoreless 5th. And as he continues to provide, good innings. And then in the 6th, the Yankees finally get on the board. And again, just really not a whole lot going on at all up until that point. So in the 6th, with 2 outs, Giancarlo Stanton gets a double, and then Aaron Judge follows him with a double. And then Rougned Odor would fly out. And that would be it for Harvey. So Harvey was definitely getting into a little bit of trouble in the 6th, but he leaves with a lead. He leads with the Orioles up 2-1. Darren O'Day comes in, and he gets off to a rocky start. And that's kind of been the issue with O'Day. He's been not so bad escaping out of his own jams, but he's getting into a little bit of trouble. He hits Austin Hayes to start the inning. Then Pedro Severino on if memory serves, a hit-and-run single, I think. 1st and 3rd, no outs. He strikes out Ryan Mountcastle. So it's 1st and 3rd, 1 out, and then they call a balk on O'Day. And I think that O'Day has been susceptible to this in his career. Baltimore certainly knows him. Different regime, of course, but he spent years with the Orioles, and they got him. And it seemed like he did balk. It's such a dumb rule, but I think it's the right call. And so it seemed like maybe he had a chance to get out of it, and that run scores to make it 3-1. Then he gets Rio Ruiz to strike out. Ramon Urias then flies out, and so it's 3-1 at the end of 6. Baltimore's bullpen comes in, and Travis Lakins would replace Harvey and pitches a scoreless 7th. Justin Wilson gives up a leadoff home run to Cedric Mullins. So he homers again, making it 4-1. So, not great by O'Day and Wilson not being able to hold it down. And then things get really interesting in the 8th. Extremely interesting. So the lefty Tanner Scott comes in, and he is all over the place. He walks Clint Frazier. He walks DJ LeMahieu. Then Giancarlo Stanton on a 1-0 as the tying run gets under one. Classic Yankees trying to hit one out. And look, obviously, if he did hit one out, it would have been extremely useful, but he gets under it. Then Aaron Judge walks. The big at-bat would be Rougned Odor against the lefty, and unfortunately, they had no other options. Again, at that point in time, you still had Tachman on the team. There's Gardner, there's Ford, there's all lefties on the bench, and then Higashioka, who's the backup catcher that night. So Odor, unfortunately, strikes out. I will say this, though, and we'll talk about Odor further. He has had some big hits, but not in this spot. He did not come through, and he really should have been more patient with Scott really being wild. And then the really interesting at-bat happens here, where Urshela would face Cesar Valdez. So Valdez has been the closer for Baltimore, going for a 4-out save. Bases loaded, 2 outs. A line drive single for Urshela. Frazier scores, and you think that LeMahieu is going to score, but unfortunately, Aaron Judge, for I don't know what the fuck he was thinking, and this was also Aaron Judge's birthday, I believe, as well. Judge tries to make too much happen, and he gets tagged out at third. But what you didn't realize at the time was that they actually ruled LeMahieu out at home. So they're saying that Judge was out at third before LeMahieu touched home plate. And this leads to chaos. And I think that the ump was quick with it in terms of not letting... The end result is that the Yankees aren't able to challenge it. Mendoza, the bench coach, is on the phone, and all of a sudden Boone hears, all right, it's done. And Boone freaks out, curses him out, gets ejected. But I think if I'm Boone there should be no delay. You got to just challenge that immediately. It's the 8th inning. I mean, rarely do I see in baseball a situation where it's like, they ran out of challenges. I just don't see it too often. So I put a lot of that on Boone. Again, the ump isn't blameless in this. And then looking at the replay, it would have been tough to overturn. I do think Judge was definitely out of third. And I do think that LeMahieu was safe. I do think that LeMahieu touches home before Judge is tagged out. But again, terrible job by Aaron Judge making that third out of third. Just stupid baseball. Again, just really senseless. Seriously. So terrible job by Judge there. And so that would make it only 4-2. Chad Green comes on in the 8th, pitches a scoreless inning, and then in the 9th, Valdez cleans it up with Gary Sanchez grounding out to end the game. And so Sanchez would be 0 for 4 at that point, with 2 strikeouts, dropping his batting average to 182. So what happens in the next game is that Kyle Higashioka would be the starting catcher, which was interesting at the time only because, Garrett Cole, usually obviously there's a day game after night game he'll catch, but it's interesting. Again, Higashioka's doing well, Sanchez not, so Higashioka gets to start. Corey Kluber on the mound against Bruce Zimmerman. And this was Kluber's best outing as a Yank. And again, let's not discount Higashioka's impact behind the plate, but Kluber did really well here. Kluber was, running out of gas a bit at the end, but he went as deep as he's gone all year long. And I thought it got risky at times too. They were kind of playing with fire, but it worked out. In this one, like I said, Higashioka's in for Sanchez. Odor's in the lineup again. So the Yankees get on the board early due to a sac fly by Gio Urshela. LeMahieu gets a double, Stanton grounds out, Judge singles, and then Urshela gets a sac fly. That was this first sac fly of the year for the Yankees. The first. They were the only team that hadn't had a sac fly in Major League Baseball. And they're also the only team in Major League Baseball that doesn't have a triple. I mean, I was looking at their stats after that Monday game, and it was like league lows all over the place. I think it was like lowest in slugging, one of the lowest in OPS. It was just ugly. But they would turn things around a bit in this one. So a sac fly for Gio, and then in the third, Aaron Judge would get a solo homer to make it 2-0. And then in the fourth, and again, Kluber cruising along for the most part, Kyle Higashioka hits a solo shot. Makes it 3-0, and that's great to see. As someone who does not like Gary Sanchez, the better Higgy does, the less we'll see Gary. So great to see Higgy continue to do well. This was a ball to right center field. I mean, he looks really good up there. And the Yankees wouldn't be done there. Gio Urshela, with the bases loaded, they would take out Zimmerman, and Dylan Tate comes in, and Urshela gets a single, scores a run, but then Stan would be thrown at the plate. So that would make it 4-0. Baltimore would respond in the fourth with an RBI single by Maikel Franco to make it 4-1. Again, Gleyber, doing a good job. And in the seventh, Giancarlo Stanton hits a solo homer, his 6th homer of the year, to make it 5-1. Gleyber, much to my surprise, would start the seventh, and he was hit hard, and he wouldn't finish the seventh. He would pitch 6 2/3. I have my doubts with Gleyber, but this was a step in the right direction. And then Jonathan Loáisiga would come in. He would get Trey Mancini to ground out, would pitch a good 8th where he would strike out the side. And then in the 9th, it would be Lucas Licky who gets a 1-2-3 inning. So good job by the pen. But what was of note was that Aaron Judge was replaced in the 9th inning. And wouldn't you know, Aaron Judge would not play the next 2 games. So it's going to be a frustrating situation with Judge where he's going to be kind of in and out of the lineup. And he had played for a while, but clearly there's something up with him. And he would have a pinch hit appearance in the last game of the series, but sounds like he'll be fine for the Tiger series this weekend. But again, Aaron Judge, it's just going to be something that they're going to have to deal with and live with. But the Yankees do win this one 5-1. Again, good job where, Gio gets a big sac fly and a big RBI hit. And you got some home runs by Judge, Higashioka, and Stanton. It's funny, whenever Judge has his best games, you can always expect those are the times when, all right, he's going to be on the shelf. It's really weird. Moving on to game 3, and this one would be Domingo Germán versus Dean Kramer. And this was definitely the best outing by the Yanks, pitching, hitting, fielding, a real complete performance in this one. And Mike Ford would return to the lineup, replacing Rougned Odor. What was really interesting is that Higashioka played again. To me, that was pretty telling that Higashioka would play again, but you kind of knew it. After his good Tuesday performance, you knew he'd be back in there. And especially since he was going to be on tap to catch Friday with Cole, and that there was a day game on Thursday, it made sense for it to line up where it would be Higgy Wednesday, Sanchez Thursday, back to Higgy Friday. Like I said about Mike Ford, back in the lineup and would hit an opposite field home run to make it 1-0 in the second. And then in the third, the Yanks bats would get going. With 1 out, LeMahieu singles, Stanton singles, and Gleyber Torres gets his 3rd RBI of the year, an RBI single, to make it 2-0. Then Gio Urshela hits the big blow, a 3-run homer by Urshela to make it 5-0. He continues to really have a pretty good season. So yeah, that would make it 5-0. Germán continues to pitch really well. And then in the 5th, Kramer gives up a single to Stanton, then a Torres flyout, then Gio singles. Kramer's out of the game. Sean Armstrong walks Mike Ford, and then it's a sac fly for Aaron Hicks to make it 6-0. And then Germán would actually have a no-hitter through 4 2/3 until Ryan Mountcastle would get an infield single. Gio Urshela did the best he couldn't get the out, so the no-hitter ends there. Yeah, Germán ends up pitching 7 scoreless innings. Really, he has upside. There's no question that the talent is there with him, but can he reel it in? And he did a good job. And again, Higashioka behind the plate, I think that helps. And so, yeah, Germán pitches really well. And then Clint Frazier hits a solo homer in the 8th, his first homer of the year. And it seems like he's beginning to snap out of it, playing some good defense. He had a really bad brain fart earlier where it was a runner on second, no out, and it's a ground ball to short, and he just stupidly goes to third and gets tagged out. You never want to make the first out of third. It was dumb. He does make up for it with this home run. And then Michael King pitches 2 scoreless innings in the 9th and then gets sent down. Wandy Peralta would replace Michael King on the roster, but it's too bad. King keeps on pitching really well, and then he keeps on getting sent down, and then, it's a 10-day situation, so I think at some point we're going to see him on the regular roster and not be shuttled back and forth, but it's kind of unfortunate for him. He's giving the Yankees meaningful innings, but unfortunately he has options, so they keep on putting him back down to the alternate site. And so, yeah, the Yankees win 7-0. They crush Dean Kramer, and things are looking up at this point. So now, the last game of the series, and probably the one that'll be talked about the most, just in terms of recency, and it was a really close game. This would be Jordan Montgomery against Jorge Lopez.
Because Sanchez is in. Judge out again. And nothing really of note lineup-wise that's too crazy. But in the first, Montgomery would run into some problems. And it seems like that's been a theme for him. Montgomery in the first inning has not been great. And then he kind of settles down. Cedric Mullins gets a single. A sac bunt by Austin Hayes. And then an RBI single by Trey Mancini. Mancini would do damage today. So that would make it 1-0. And unfortunately, the Yankees this is one of those games where the Yankees would have base runners but not come through. 3 for 14 runners in scoring position. They only had a couple of really big hits and a lot of runners left on base. So, yeah. And Torres was, early on really frustrating me, where Torres has a big at-bat in the third and would strike out looking with first and second, 2 outs. So at this point, I'm beginning to not trust Torres in the power production. I don't want him trying to hit home runs, but maybe in doing so, he's not hitting for much power at all. It's pretty startling. And this is someone who only hit 3 home runs last season. The Yankees would come through in the fifth. In the fifth, Gardner gets a single, LeMahieu walks. Lopez is out of the game. They bring in Adam Plutko. Stanton would hit a bloop single. And then the ball was bobbled by DJ Stewart, and I thought that Gardner or maybe Phil Nevin should have been more alert to the fact that had happened. Gardner was kind of just cruising into third. If he was alert there and kind of on the run, he scores there easily, and it almost cost them. Gleyber Torres would hit a shallow fly to right, doesn't score the run. Then Gio Urshela strikes out. He has had a propensity to chase Gio as much as I like him. But Rougned Odor, as he has done a lot this year, comes up with a big 2-out, 2-run single. He has been one of the guys that has really come up in the clutch. And so the Yankees would make it 2-1. And then, of course, Aaron Hicks grounds out. Big shock. The guy has done next to nothing. Let's move to the bottom of the 6th. And here's where things get interesting. Montgomery, to that point, had been settling down. I think he'd only had 1 strikeout. Was getting a little bit lucky, but the pitch count was low. And Mancini had been giving him problems all game. What gets interesting is that Mancini, unfortunately, hits a solo home run to start the inning. What gets stranger is that then they take him out. So Chad Green, you're telling me, was ready to pitch, and then he doesn't face Mancini. It's just, I would have been fine with Montgomery pitching the entire 6th, but it gets weirder when, it's unfortunate that Montgomery gives up that home run to Mancini, and then he's out. Just odd to me. Not a great look, in my opinion. And then, of course, Green pitches 2 really good innings. And in the top of the 7th, Gleyber would hit a double play, a soft sort, a 6-4-3. So my anger towards Gleyber is sort of building and building. Not much going on. Urshela would have a leadoff walk against Paul Fry in the top of the 8th. And then Aaron Judge would pinch hit for Odor. I was hoping that Judge would pinch hit for Gardner at some point, maybe in a lefty situation. But in their mind, they knew that Judge was not going to play the field. See, that's part of it. Judge, they knew, all right, we're going to pinch hit Judge, and then we're going to replace Odor with either Wade or Ford. So Judge gets his at bat, and he strikes out. And his career numbers as a pinch hitter are terrible. Really bad. So Judge strikes out. Then Aaron Hicks strikes out. Again, Aaron Hicks, and this was as a righty, Hicks has been dreadful. I believe his batting average is below 140 on the season. He is batting, 139. Ridiculous. And then Gary Sanchez grounds out. So we move to the bottom of the 8th. Tyler Wade would replace Judge and Odor, in effect. And then Darren O'Day, leadoff walk to Mullins. Not what you want to do. And then it would come back to bite as Austin Hayes would get an RBI double to give the Orioles the lead. And then Hayes would advance to third on a throwing error by Torres. So Torres tries to get the out at home. It wasn't really a bad throw by Torres. To be honest, I thought Gary should have kept that in front of him, but they're going to give the error to Torres every time. But O'Day would actually strand the runner at third with no outs. Ground out Mancini, pop out Franco, line out Severino. And so it's still 3-2, which was really important. So in the 9th, Valdez comes in, and Ford pinch hits for Frazier. And it ends up working out as he would draw a walk. But, wow, you didn't even have Wade as a pinch runner option. And I was kind of nervous about that. But it just goes to show, Frazier, he's just not viewed in the same way as others. And I'll admit, I think I backed the kid maybe more than most, like, I gave him the benefit of the doubt more than some of the other players, but Ford does draw the walk. Then Gardner strikes out looking. Brett Gardner, the sooner he retires, the better it is. It's been a great career. He's been a great Yankee, but it's got to end soon. It just has to. I'm sorry. Then DJ LeMahieu walks. Then Giancarlo Stanton, who had 3 hits to that point and has been turning around, unfortunately in the clutch, would strike out. That leads to Gleyber Torres at bat. I had no faith that he was going to come through. Give him credit, a really nice at bat, and he would get a double. But it would be a ground rule double. And I had a feeling this was going to come back to bite, and sure enough, it did. LeMahieu would have easily scored from first. Easily. But it's a ground rule double. And then Gio Urshela lines out to short, and I thought maybe they would walk Urshela to face Tyler Wade. But Urshela lines out. Chapman comes in the 9th in a tie game, strikes out the side. He has been filthy. Fastball up to 102. He's got the splitter. He has been fantastic, Aroldis Chapman, and basically untouchable. Top of the 10th rolls around. Gio's the runner on second. They bring in the lefty Tanner Scott, who had some control issues in the first game of the series. Tyler Wade is instructed to bunt. I get it. Tyler Wade isn't a very good hitter. He should be able to bunt. Fault goes to Wade. Also, in the top of the inning, it is paramount to score like 2 runs, like multiple runs. Getting 1 run with this format isn't great. Like in the bottom of the inning, you bunt 100% in a tie game. I don't love the idea of bunting when they did. Wade just didn't seem comfortable out there. And even to the point where they would have him bunt with 2 strikes and he would foul out first. It would be a strikeout. When you bunt foul on the 3rd strike, it's a strikeout. So really ugly all around there. Really bad job by Tyler Wade. I didn't necessarily agree with the way they handled it either. Just bad. And then Aaron Hicks grounds out to the pitcher. Again, Hicks just not getting it done. The guy just is a mess right now, and I don't know what you do with him. Gary Sanchez is intentionally walked. Then Mike Ford with a 2-0 count. It was definitely a ball. They called it a strike, and then Ford would swing at what looked like a couple of balls. Again, Mike Ford against the lefty. That isn't going to work out too well. And then you had the great Brett Gardner on deck. There's just a lot of players that just aren't getting it done, simply aren't that good, whether that be due to age, just maybe them being minor league caliber, whatever you want to call it. The options aren't great. Jonathan Loáisiga comes in the bottom of the 10th. And what do you know? Pat Valaika lays down a successful bunt. What Tyler Wade couldn't do, Valaika does. And I thought that Loáisiga's 0-1 pitch was a little bit too easy to bunt. I was hoping that maybe he would make it a little more difficult. It's a perfect bunt. And the runner moves over to 3rd. And then Cedric Mullins is up. Runner on 3rd, 1 out. And at the very least, you should have pitched carefully to him. Mullins has been killing you all series. And it's a righty-lefty situation. I did fear Mancini in the hole, so Hayes was on deck and then Mancini. What you could have done is you could have honestly walked Mullins, then hoped to get Hayes out, and then maybe walk Mancini as well. Like, there was ways to work around it. I would have probably tried to pitch carefully to Mullins, and what do you know? He gets a sac fly. So fundamental baseball, you get the bunt, you get the sac fly. The throw by Hicks wasn't even close. It was a joke throw, and Baltimore wins it 4-3 and splits the series with the Yanks. And 4-3 against Baltimore this year. They have not, and I think that Baltimore, again, I keep on saying this, they're not quite as bad as everyone makes them out to be, but when the dust settles, they probably will finish last in the division. That would seem to be a fair guess. So, we'll see what happens. Weekend series home against Detroit, who are playing pretty poor baseball. I believe they have a doubleheader today in Chicago. So we'll see how that sets them up for this weekend. But, you honestly can't accept anything less than winning 2 out of 3. And to be truthful, you want to sweep. Garrett Cole started in the first game. You honestly want to get greedy and you want to sweep home against Detroit. So anything less than 2 out of 3 would be a disaster. And like I said, a sweep would be great. So we'll see what happens, and I will talk to you then.